Please welcome me in joining Sister Carol.
Am I okay down here? Okay, and you can hear me? Wonderful. As we start, just a show of hands, who's been in computing the last 5 years? Last 10 years? Last 15 years? 20 years? Okay, good. Okay. So, what's going through your mind? OMG, oh my God. All this technology stuff. It's delightful to have you here, and it's delightful to listen to Steve. I've heard him several times, and he always blows my mind. So I hope your minds are blown, because he is ahead of the curve in many ways. My personal story is I go back to 1983, where I met a 12-year-old in a Radio Shack store. And as I met this 12-year-old, all of a sudden I realized that I did not talk the language he talked, because he talked to me for 45 minutes about the computer he was sitting at. And as I walked out of the Radio Shack store, I realized that I was out of date, and I better catch up. And you're sitting next to somebody, just for a moment, what's your quick computer story? How far back do you go? We see some of you go back quite a bit, and others not. Just tell quickly what your story is and how it is that you got interested in technology in ministry. 1 minute. You move around quick. Come on, pair up. Aha. Thank you. Okay. Just a little so you get to know somebody different. That 12-year-old actually changed my life. I never imagined I'd ever get into educational technology. In the triangle, technology triangle, they often refer to it as the ICT triangle. I stands for information technology, C for communications, and T for educational technology. In our church, we're quite strongly based in I and C of the triangle. When we get to educational technology, we have a resistance. We're not into it. Most schools have some kind of an educational technology program. Most dioceses may or may not have an ed tech person on staff. In the state of Florida, where I live, we have 7 dioceses. Only 1 diocese has an ed tech person at the diocesan level. So the educational technology area is a little bit kind of a stepchild. In fact, I'm a member of the National Conference of Catechetical Leadership. Every time I talk about faith-based educational technology, they look at me like I have horns coming out of my head. And what they say is, well, it's digital catechesis. And I go, well, sort of. I said, but it really is based into educational technology. And most people will say, well, that's education. I go, no. It's a field that's called educational technology, and that's what gives us life in that particular area. The reason why ed tech is so important today is you and I are working with many digital natives, and they're 25 years and younger, primarily. And a lot of them blog and podcast, and they spend a lot of time in front of the screen. Now, some of us may have a resistance to that. However, as Steve pointed out, eventually we will be wearing that screen over our eye, and we'll be seeing everything. It'll become part of our everyday life. So we can't resist it. We have to figure out how to utilize it in many ways. So, if we're going to learn things today, we learn many subjects using the iPad or whatever is going to be used. It's all there. We have to remember it is a language, it is a culture, and a skill. When you go to France, you learn to speak French. You go to Spain, you learn to speak Spanish. You go to the country, there are different culture things to learn, different skills there. The digital world is no different. It is a language, a culture, and a skill. And to understand this, I think we have to kind of look at what is relational ministry. Most of us means, I'd give you a minute to buzz over here, but I think we're a little late, so I won't do the buzz. But most of us understand relational ministry in these particular categories: face-to-face, small group sharing, face sharing, teaching in the classroom, and we can go on. In the traditional sense, we basically say as ministers, we're going to do it the same old, same old. But our young people are in different places. So if we look at it, the traditional, it's going to be there. It's not going to go away. But we're going to do online presentations. Sister Beatrice, who was one of my first students in the Digital Discipleship Bootcamp, I keep following her. This is like 3 years later. It's amazing to see what she's doing in her parish now, simply using webinars, the websites, and everything else for adults in the area of ministry. Amy Barber simply worked with this group of students in another country using simple tools like Skype. Online learning is very important, and if you follow the Center for Digital Education's Convergence Special, you begin seeing that today's classrooms are changing. How many here have walked into a classroom in a public school? What did you notice? Yes?
Desks are still there.
Desks are
Still there.
Desks are still there. But what else have you noticed?
Every student has a laptop or an iPad that has some device that they're using,
Okay,
and they're connected with the teacher, and the teacher's actually.
okay. A lot of technology in that particular area. Okay. So our students in our other subject areas are very exposed, and if we look at it, Steve already talked about Facebook is important. Christy, when she was at St. Cecilia, since there she's moved up to the northern part here. She's in Pennsylvania now, near Philadelphia. She did scripture podcasting with her parents, and the variety of stories that have come out with students who've been in Digital Discipleship Bootcamp are fascinating. One of our women who, she's in a parish where a lot of the children of the parents in her moved, Denver and other places, yet they want to come back to their home parish to have their children baptized. So when she was in the program, she scratched her head and said, what do I do with them? They're there, I'm here, how do I prepare them for the sacrament of baptism with their children? And she has figured out how to do it using Skype, the website, and email and phone calls. So she has figured out, how to use technology to form the parents of the families that she's working with. So we're at a point now where new ways in the digital culture is simply going to be part of our lives, whether we like it or not. And many of us do not necessarily have the skills that we need. This summer we had 72 students in the Digital Discipleship Program. 1/3 of them, as normal, usually say, I'm very comfortable using technology. Well, after the first 2 sessions, most of them had their hands up and saying, wait, I thought I knew what I was doing, but all of a sudden you are stretching my mind, to use a variety of things, Web 2.0 tools, cloud computing, and most folks, said, slow down. So we slowed down a little bit, but most folks think they're ready for it and they're ready to evangelize in it, but they, over a 4-month program, they're much more ready after that. But the first couple of weeks, they're a little like, oh boy, I'm being overwhelmed. But we work with them and they move right along. When you look at this, social media is, in a sense, really reflected in our church. Rome has been on top of this for many years. Some of us have kept our eyes closed and our ears shut, and we're not paying attention. But it goes back to basically saying the church is saying, embrace this. It's the language that we're using today, and so we simply have to adapt to it. The key thing we're in, and Steve alluded to this today, we are in what's called a participatory culture. And as a participatory culture, It means just that. Our young people like to participate. They will interact with you, and he gave excellent examples of how to participate in this culture. And it's from about 35 down. That's the group that simply expects us to participate. Now, in the church, what's our model for communication? Top down. And I watch it in my own community as we work the Facebook page. You know, you have to tell us what you went on our Facebook page, then we'll put it on the Facebook page. And I go, that doesn't make sense in this world anymore, because I can go to any page of any company and simply state, you know, what I want, ask a question, whatever, and I'm not filtered. So as a church, how we unfilter what we do is going to be very important, because that's not the way our young people communicate. Our young people do not communicate through filters anymore. Doesn't work. One of the major resources I have found comes from Eugene Gann, Infinite Bandwidth. I'd encourage you, if you haven't read that yet, to do read it. Very good points in there for how to encounter Christ in the media in general. Another new book that is out, that just came out this summer, Scott Landry's book, Transforming Parish Communications. Very helpful material, and lots of practical examples of how to communicate within a parish and to transform your communications in the parish to 21st century. Of course, Word of Fire. Who's familiar with Word of Fire? Okay, if you're not familiar with this is an excellent series and can be used in a variety of ways. The website's excellent, and actually Father Robert Barron, you've heard of him? Okay. Actually, I met him when I was in the Chicago Archdiocese. Wonderful priest, and very alive with communicating in media about our Catholicism. So it's very good. Another story I want to share with you is Diane Kledzik, one of our first students. Her son was very much into geocaching. So when she got to the point of doing a capstone project, because that's an option for folks who participate in Digital Discipleship Bootcamp, she chose the tool geocaching. Who knows what geocaching is about? Wonderful. Okay. It's a great tool because what it allows you to do is to search for a hidden object anywhere in the world. And by finding that object, you can get some kind of reward, whatever it might be. And how Diane did it is, in our diocese, we have what we call pilgrimage parishes. And so there's a brochure of these parishes. She contacted the pastors and said, would you mind if I would bury a cache on your property? And she explained what that was to them. And she went back to the geocaching website, indicated where those were at. Actually, her son was helping her out with that. And so in these various parishes, you see different things being planted. The cache is over here. And she is evangelizing by using geocaching. So they get acquainted with the parish, find an object, and work with that. So these tools, if you get creative, can be done in some very interesting things. So you just begin thinking of, how do I become a 21st century catechetical leader or minister in this area, and working with it. And let me just kind of give you some thoughts and ideas from some friends of mine. A digital age catechetical leader is one who isn't afraid to use the tools. One of the things that I have discovered most with the folks we work with in DDBC is a real hesitation. You know, they kind of put their arms out first, like, you really want me to use Facebook? I don't use Facebook. Well, if you don't use Facebook today, even though we know it's going to die out eventually, but if you don't use it today, you're not communicating with a huge percentage of the people that are part of it with you. So, you know, you can't be afraid of the tools to spread the gospel message, and that's Richard. Judy Dieterle says she moves in and out of the tools of the age, using what further the mission of Jesus, while also knowing and respecting the necessary boundaries to protect those in their care. You have to remember there are boundaries in communicating. This is where being in the everyday world is referred to as digital citizenship. The areas of cyberbullying are very important to be aware of. You know, so how you communicate in a digital manner is very important, and there are all kinds of websites and everything else. All you have to do is type in digital citizenship. It's amazing what comes up and assistance that you have in this particular area. Cheryl Sagan says, tweets the reminder to check the Facebook page for updates on the next event and or meetings. For those of you using Twitter, anybody use Twitter? Okay, good. You know, once you get your followers in that, you simply tweet that message out and they can check that very quickly and easily. It's an idea of instant messaging in particular ways. Sister Rose Picotti, she says, basically have an open attitude toward technology and a critical disposition toward the culture of those who create. Appreciates and uses new technologies to tell stories. Sister Rose is very much into storytelling, and digital storytelling can be very easily done using a very simple tool called Animoto. Has anyone ever heard of Animoto? Okay, it's available both for a mobile tool as well as for your computer. In 3 steps, you basically can create a very beautiful video that you can use to communicate on your Facebook page, on your website. You can embed it in your website and tell a story of something that's happened in your parish very quickly and easily. Joyce Donahue says, is not afraid to use social networking, media, and technology for ministry and catechesis, and willing to learn new technology skills. That willingness to learn new skills is very, very important today. And I love Tim. Basically, he says, like leaders in any age, echoes the story speaking the language of the natives. And basically, he says, who will buy Tim an iPad? They're in. I love it. Okay. One of the key things today is, as a minister, you need to stand out in the crowd. And I'm going to give you 10 particular steps for standing out in the crowd. I'll walk you through each of them. And I do want to remind you that this presentation in a handout that you have in your folder is there. So you can go back to it. You can download it for yourself afterwards. So everything that's here, you do have access to afterwards. Observe. What do you want to observe? Go to the actual habitat of the participants you're working with. See what they're doing with technology. Have you been in a classroom lately? Some of you have been. You begin seeing that the classrooms are filled with whiteboards. And Steve began talking about this is about $2,000. Most of our parishes do not have money for a whiteboard and $2,000. But many of our catechists have a tablet, do they not? And there are apps for the tablet which become like a whiteboard, which you can hook into your system. So, you know, even though you may not have money for the particular item that you'd love to have, there are alternatives that are of less cost in there. You begin seeing kids love to interact and work things on the whiteboard. You notice the panel that is here. They have access to tools. They are working with creating their own digital stories, laptops, response systems. Response systems can be done very simply, even with a phone, and worked with an app in that particular way. So when you look at the types of classrooms our students are coming from when they come to the parish for religious education, do we mirror what they are experiencing in their everyday classroom? We're not. And when I ask catechists, when I work with catechists and training them, I usually ask them, what do you notice about your children? One of the first things that comes up is they're bored. Well, what do you mean they're bored? I don't know, they're just bored. Well, you have to remember our children today are epic learners. They are media savvy, they like interaction, they participate, and we're not teaching in that new model for them with technology. So you need to step into the educational technology world, and that's usually very easily done. by just looking to see what kinds of conferences, and there are at least 20 ed tech conferences that go on across the country right now. I happen to live in Florida, where the oldest one is at, that began over 35 years ago, called the Florida Educational Technology Conference. In 2016, we will do a conference again, co-locating with the FETC. So we have the best of two worlds. We get the pastoral technology side for a couple of days, and then we get the school side of technology. And the best part of the conference is walking through the exhibit hall. It usually takes me at least a day to go through the exhibit hall. There are over 300 vendors that are there, and you begin seeing that technology is very key to this learning environment, and you begin getting a sense of all the different technologies that are available, and you begin saying, oh my gosh. And then I can see they're low budget, medium budget, and high budget. And so you begin planning for whatever budget you are able to handle. Then the key trick is that those who are teaching today learn about this technology. One of the easiest things today to learn is what's called a personal learning network. Well, what's a PLN, as it's often referred to? Basically, I, as a learner today, don't necessarily have to go to workshops to learn how to do this. I can go to educators who write blogs. I have a blog called A Cyber Pilgrim. I have 6 or 7 people who blog with me in Catechesis 2.0. So there are all kinds of suggestions in blogs as to how to use technology. I've learned if I want to learn how to use a tool, all I do is go to YouTube and say, Animoto tutorial. And I have learned how to do it. I can go, I watch different things, and oh, there's a webinar in such and such next week. I sign up for it, I can learn it. There are podcasts, different websites, all kinds of books. If you go to my website, A Cyber Pilgrim, you'll see, I forget what the tab says, but basically it will lead you to at least 30 books that are in the technology area that are very helpful, and people can buy a book to work with that. The Cyber Pilgrim is one of the blogs. Digital Catechesis is a Ning website. Ning is like Facebook, where it allows people to join as members and have conversations in that. But this particular website focuses on people sharing videos that they have found on YouTube that are helpful to ministers or catechists. You know, so if you type in like Lent, Advent, reconciliation, Eucharist, whatever, you begin getting a variety of videos. So instead of scrolling through maybe 2,000 videos on YouTube and try and figure out what's going to be the best to use, you already have folks who have gone through the 2,000 and have picked very helpful videos, and they're here for you to utilize. And you can add comments about how you've used it, so you have that participatory kind of relationship with these things here. Collaboration is key. Steve didn't talk too much about that today, but I've worked with people in developing DDBC. Like Claudia and I were the co-founders of this particular group, and we used 400 hours of work basically connecting with each other using what is called GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, email, and telephone. She lives in St. Petersburg. I live over in Oldsmar near Tampa. We never got in the car to go back and forth with each other, so we collaborated using the tools that we have. So often we reach the point of people saying, I don't have time to do this, whatever, you know. I got to get in the car, I got to find a babysitter, I got to do this, I got to do that. Well, today, if you simply say at 8 o'clock at night, we're going to have an hour meeting, and you meet using Google Hangouts, or some of the other tools that are free, or you have a purchased plan with something like GoToMeeting, you can meet on a regular basis with these people, and you don't use gas, travel time, or whatever, and you can work very effectively with each other. So we've got to learn new ways to collaborate, which means if you think about it, I can begin collaborating with other ministers in other parishes that are near me. You might want to meet every so often for breakfast or lunch or dinner, so you have that nice face-to-face contact and get to meet people, and then say, okay, we'll meet on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, or whatever time you choose to meet with and collaborate with each other. And there are all kinds of things you can do here. This is Mission to Learn. That website gives you some ideas of how to collaborate and work in that. The other thing is, educational technology is over 35 years old in this country. There are many best practices going on everywhere. We can learn from the best practices and simply adapt them. So adapt the best. Toys to Tools has some great stories in there of how they've used mobile tools and other things. And that's the other thing is, we may say, no, I don't have money to do a technology lab, but every one of your students, 80 to 85% of them have either a cell phone or a mobile tablet that they have access to, that they can bring with them into the classroom. Amy Barber was one of the youth ministers that was in the first program, and as she went back to her parish and began using mobile tools with her students, she had 10 students her first year as she worked with them. The word traveled that she was doing some exciting and neat things in the class with simple mobile tools. And the next year when kids signed up, she had 50 kids sign up. You know, so by using contemporary tools with our young people, it does interest them and it indicates to them that you walk their walk and they talk their talk. So that's very important. The store has a variety of books that are here, and those you can look through those and find some very helpful things for you. Doesn't take long to read them. And of course, there are other things you can do with PowerPoint reflections, videos. You can download your videos from YouTube, or you can create your own. Students know how to do digital storytelling, so they can use those tools very quickly. So you can have digital prayer and reflection. eWater is one great site from Ireland, and you can download their materials. PowerPoint is okay. Kids know how to do it and work with it, but there are other things that are even more exciting than PowerPoint. Adapt your best practices to catechesis. For example, in Toys to Tools, there is an oral history project of, as I read it, I went, oh, that could be an oral history of my parish. So all the steps and everything that's involved are outlined right there. I just simply adapted it to whatever. There's another one on a photo blog. Well, okay, what's in my church could become the photo blog. So all the steps and everything you need to do are right there from what's going on in the school community. I was delighted to hear Steve say that over 50% of his readers are doing scripture study using mobile tools. It's very easy to do that, and we can experience that. Now, the simple way is those of us who have digital cameras on our phones. I was at Basilica Church one summer, so I took this series of photos of the church all the way through, and this particular group right here is like Jesus and Joseph. And when I went back and used my little imagination, I took the reading, Luke 2, 41 to 52, where you have Jesus and Joseph talking about, you know, what happened after he got lost in the temple and everything. And what's really nice about that is you can create the Animoto, you can go back and actually look at it. But now what's nice about this, Animoto, this becomes a 30-second video, but I can comment off of this. This doesn't show over here too well, but you can comment right on this and interact. You can ask a question on the side. I don't think that's there. No, that just says plays the video. If it goes to play the video, you will see the question on the side. It's, what do you think Jesus and Joseph were talking about after being lost in the temple? So the kids can interact with you and you can interact with the students about that. So think about how you can use this particular tool with RCIA students, adults, young adults, getting them to either create things or to work with them, doing that. Cell phones are just very important. These are just simple. We all know this. Cell phones are in their pockets, and they're more than cell phones. And it's in their culture, so that's all Chandler and Ocott and Mayer are saying is, in their culture, adapt it, very simply. So You can do things like using Wordle. Key thing is try not to do technology alone. You can do it alone, but if you're going to do it in the parish, try and engage a few people who support each other and try different things and keep the conversation going. Participatory culture is very important today, so keep people involved. It's a Web 2.0 world. If I began saying to you all the different options that are there are all kinds of options. Who likes to play in a sandbox? Nobody? Okay, that's your reason for not going further. In today's age, you have to pretend that you're playing in a digital sandbox. And that digital sandbox is there are all kinds of tools that are out there. Right now I have 240 apps on my phone. I play with them. Okay, because I play with them and I begin saying, oh, they're different things. Now, if you come to the sacrament one this afternoon, or just even look it up online afterwards, you'll see that I recommend 10 different tools and what you can do with those 10 different tools. But you have to play with them to understand what they do before you can utilize them. And as you utilize them, there are very creative things you can do with these tools. The other thing is you need to become advocates in your parish that money needs to be put aside. If you're going to use cell phones, mobile tools, you need a wireless network. And if you're going to share it with the school, you have to figure out to get the right tool so that the school can have their account, you can have your account, safety and everything else is there, and there are tools that will allow you to do that, but it does cost. So you have to figure out, what it is that you need to advocate for. And that's where going to an FETC conference where you can meet a variety of exhibitors, all of a sudden you begin realizing there's more than one option here. There's several options. And you can find others who understand this world and can help you shape and form that. The other thing you want to do is, who has a technology plan in their parish? Oh, wonderful. Okay. Stand up for a moment and say which parish you're from.
St. Elizabeth Parish in Chester Springs.
Excellent. Everybody get her card, phone number, whatever.
I'm not on it.
Okay. Is it on the website?
We have a technology advisory board.
Excellent, excellent. Chat with her because you begin getting a sense of how other parishes are doing these things. How has that plan helped you?
Well, we have a school as well, so
Right.
they're planning into the future, the next steps.
Right.
The parish-
But the school isn't the only one with a technology plan. Okay? See, that's the mindset that's so important. What has happened with technology is we go into the school because we have students we're working with, and that's very important, and they've all been taught how to do a technology plan. Sister Angela Ann Zukowski at the University of Dayton is one of the first people in the country that began training schools how to do technology plans. However, the parish has a school, has a religious ed program, has a youth ministry program, has an adult program, has everything else over here, and they've all been left out of that technology plan. And so now we're in an age where technology affects all of us, but all the technology and the mindset is in the school. So that is one of the first things we need to challenge and change. So go back and advocate and learn from, your name again? Jen. Learn from Jen how they did it, get their ideas and everything else, because that's what you need to do, and it can be done. They've shown you it can be done, and it's working. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. The other is just continue learning more about media literacy. Media literacy was one of the key things that many folks who did movies and movie conversations and that began getting media literacy, but media literacy is much broader today. It's more than just movies and theater. It takes in all kinds of issues of media literacy, so that's very important today. One of the key areas to look at for more inspiration of how technology has really gradually changed is what ISTE stands for International Society for Technology and Education, another group that's over 35 years old. And what they have done, they have what they call the National Education Technology Standards. Now, this past summer, it changed now to where it is the ISTE standards, Okay, so they're not being referred to as the net standards any longer. But what is so nice about the net standards is they're short, sweet, and simple. They talk about collaborating, and down at the bottom here, see the way they started a little over 35 years ago is, how do you turn a computer on? How do you do Microsoft Word? How do you do an Excel sheet? How do you do PowerPoint? That's where they started. But now the learning standards have, okay, yes, you got to know how to use your computer, but there are other standards in here like digital citizenship, collaboration, creativity, all those that are in there. And now what's really interesting is when you begin looking over here, standards for administrators, standards for teachers, standards for students. So these are all online. I encourage you to go look at these online because they should inspire you to adapt what you're doing at the parish in your planning to bring this into everyday language, what you need to do. It gives you inspiration. When we do Digital Discipleship Boot Camp, we weave each of these standards into what we do so people become acquainted with it, and all of a sudden they're going, oh yeah, that applies to us too. It's not just school that needs this, it's everybody who needs this. So, you know, the language needs to change a little bit. That's what I find. You know, there's school language, business language, and ministry language. So you just adapt to fit that. It's just what's the best practice and how do you adapt it into your world is very important. What's extremely important is the mindset that we have. When I first began working with technology, people looked at me like, technology in religion, in theology, and then all of a sudden now it's like, yeah, technology is part of our everyday world. You know, so the mindset has to be, we embrace it. It's a tool. It's not the end all and the be all. Other ways to do things, yes. We now have what I would call is a blended format. Sometimes you do face-to-face, sometimes you do digital, sometimes you do something else, and that communication pattern is you have to figure out what works with your audience in a variety of ways. Okay, so what's happening, and we have different groups represented here. What's happening in different situations? Yes, please share your story. Come and stand up.
Well, I do full-time youth ministry work at the Baptist in Germantown, and one of the challenges I find is that there's immense diversity in the technology exposure of the kids that we have. There's some kids who have smart boards in their classrooms, which is why we asked about, it's an interesting question we asked about when you go into a public school classroom, what some of the things that you see. Depending on which public school you go to,
That's right.
you may see a whole lot of different things. And so interacting with a group of maybe anywhere from 15 to 25, and there's immense diversity in what they have access to. How to, with sensitivity to that, utilize technology in a way that it doesn't go beyond those or offend those who may not have access to it, create more of a disconnect that might already be present in our group.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Now, you're a new youth minister. Would you want to share your story with me, what you're doing right now?
Sure. Well, I started September 1st as Director of Youth Ministry for 2 parishes over in New Jersey. I come from a technology background. My degree is in Computer and Information Systems Management. So I've already started a Facebook account, a Twitter account. I have a blog for the ministry itself. I have my own blog as a youth minister. One thing that's really helped me is Evernote, which I'm using right now. I'm actually recording all the audio from the presentation, and it's going to be part of the note that's put on my phone. And then I don't have to carry around my iPad because everything syncs between my phone, my iPad, and my computer. So my notes are everywhere. I can also email myself notes with Evernote that allows me to, with the cell phones today, I can say, send me an email to Evernote, and then whatever I say in the email becomes a note in Evernote. You get a personal email address in Evernote that you can send emails to, and it links it to your account. That's free also. And you get so much storage space per month. It's not you have this much space, and once you use it, you have to buy more. It's, you have so much per month to use, and whatever you don't use, you don't use. And I've never run into a problem with the storage space. But that's my story as of right now. I'm working on getting my ministry off the ground. So I need adult volunteers because I'm building from the ground up. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, great.
So do you have?
I have a Nokia Lumia 1520, but Evernote's on everything.
That's right. Yes.
All right, well, I'm a pastor in a Catholic church. And this changing of the mindset is definitely where I'm at with this whole thing, because I'm kind of resistant. So, like, I'm preaching in my church that all of this stuff is actually the forbidden fruit.
What a mindset change. Thank you for sharing that.
So I've listened to some things that have gone on thus far, and all right, so now I recognize that if some young person is sitting in my congregation while I'm giving the homily and they're on their phone, it might be possible that they've actually looked up the scripture that I'm talking about. It might be possible that they're typing in something that I'm saying. It might be possible that they're participating with that. They're not actually playing a game. So that's a change that has happened. So when I'm walking down the aisle and I see that, I don't necessarily get ready to jump all over them, because it might actually be doing some scripture on there. So I got that. But that's my issue is because I'm concerned that I am concerned that it is the forbidden fruit, or at least that there is a lie in there, and I do believe that. The guy was talking about getting off of going offline. All right, so it's just that whole thing of the balance between moving into this new thing, using this technology, baptizing it. The changing of the mindset as you're talking about. I don't really want to get all of that much into it, but I guess I need to hire somebody who is interested in it, if I had some money, who is interested in it. But so that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm learning all of this stuff. But the mindset piece is an important piece for me, and I've begun to recognize that some people in the congregation are actually paying attention with their devices and not necessarily onto something else.
Yeah, I really appreciate your sharing that particular story because it's the mindset that I believe is where the challenge is. And once you begin understanding the various tools that are there, all of a sudden you begin saying, okay, my homily can be a podcast, which my parishioners can download onto their phones, regardless whether it's an iPhone or an Android, and they can listen to it throughout the week. If I had a space for them to interact with me, they can ask questions or clarify or whatever else. If they were in church and I had a Twitter account for us, I'd give them a hashtag, whatever you want that hashtag to be, and while they're listening to you in the sermon, they can be tweeting, which are 140 characters, what's striking them about that particular homily that you're giving that particular day. If you had screen up in the sanctuary, those tweets could be there, or afterwards you can go back and look at the tweets to see what was there, and then comment then the following week on what's here, because someone could ask a question or whatever. So you've got to begin thinking this is a manner of communications. Now, when you look at the ICT triangle that I started with over here, which is extremely important, yes, you need somebody to keep it going within the parish. Those are the folks that know how to administer the equipment, fix it, whatever else is needed over here, keep the system going. Your communications folks understand what to do with Facebook, Twitter, any of the other social tools that are using, Instagram, whatever that's there. And you begin imagining that it's more than just my Sunday bulletin that I put out. There's more to it. So you begin weaving that into it. And it's the educational technology part, which it's a learning tool. It's used in learning in a variety of ways. And our young people create with it. They catalog it. They do other things over here. But yet, how do we teach them now in their religion class? We basically are still talking at them. They're not learning that way anymore. You go into the everyday classroom, and our young people are learning very differently. than when I was in school. And so as a church, we have to adapt to all those particular areas. Our church is really good in the IC area. It's the T area that we think it belongs in schools, but it doesn't belong in ministry. It does belong in ministry and working with it. So exciting. So any other stories? Thank you all so far for sharing wonderful stories. Any other stories? Yes?
I think I missed your initial point, and I'm so glad you both shared, because there was another piece that I've been contending with. One of the things, I spent some time working for Apple, and so it was comical to me because like Apple was kind of questionable, because I've had similar sentiments, but one of the things, in addition to dealing with this issue of diversity in terms of technology exposure, we've been seeing that particularly with working with youth ministry fits into the broader context of what's happening in the broader congregation. And so that really showed a much even greater divide, because, and I have my pastor here next to me, which is really helpful, because the average age of our congregants is around like what, 60? Yeah. So working with a group of young people in the church most directly, but also realizing I have to pay attention to what's happening to the broader context of the people in our church. There is a real issue of access that's there, but it needs to be addressed. I guess it just exposed it as a much more dynamic challenge that deals more with honestly issues of diversity in economic levels, diversity in educational levels, diversity and even just an openness to interact with this technology. And so we're dealing with all of that even before we even deal with the tools. That there's just so many different ways that people come to this. And what has been most, and I wonder if you can speak to this. It almost seems like and what we've been having to take a look at with our team is even before we deal with the tools, we have to really engage our people in a much more broad way of what is our approach to this. Because, and Pastor, I appreciate you sharing your sentiments, because you're not alone with that. And there's so many others, young and not as young, that feel that same way. And so outside of the tools, what are some ways to even engage conversation about healthy use of technology? And discipleship in terms of,
right.
I don't mean to cut you off, an issue of, for example, self-control.
See, that's where
Yeah.
Scott Landry's book is very helpful, because Scott talks very much about how you bring a small group of people together in your parish to be conversing over the sense of how is it that we use technology in our parish. And in using technology in our parish, it is and as an instructional designer, the first two questions I ask are, who's the audience? And I understand everything I possibly can about that particular audience. So if I'm working with a parish, I begin saying, okay, what do you know about this audience? What are their ages? What's their backgrounds? What's this? How many have tools, don't have tools, whatever? What do we know about them? Then the second question I go, what do they need? Not what I want. What do they need? So once you figure out what they need, okay, they need to study Scripture. Okay, now I begin understanding in this world that part of my audience will not study Scripture using a phone or computer. Just not going to happen. But there is a group in the parish who's very interested in that. So now we've got to begin figuring out how do we minister to two components of an audience who have the same need of studying Scripture with different techniques.
If I may add, the other, I wonder if there's underlying a discipleship challenge. Because what happens when a person may, even not articulating this, I don't feel like studying Scripture. Which there's an issue of human condition. And so in dealing with that the underlying issue of honestly, what is my commitment to studying the Word of God? What is my commitment to growing spiritually, despite what access I may have? And I wonder about engaging conversation there, because then the tools almost become arbitrary at that point. Discipleship
is such that I like to link it in with evangelization. Evangelization happens not because I'm trying to convince somebody to become a member of my church. It's because I am so excited about what my church means to me, what my faith means to me, what my relationship is with Jesus, that I want you to know. So how do I do that? One of the groups I worked with recently, I said, last Lent, I have a Facebook page, but all of a sudden I began saying, my Facebook page is sort of like, where I go, what do I do, little things following you here. What happens if all of a sudden I say, during Lent, I want to communicate something specifically related to Lent and evangelization? So I challenged myself to that over Lent. And how I did that was I made sure my profile picture, not my profile picture, but the cover picture was a Lenten theme, that at least once a week I did something related to a little video related to Lent, in that nature there. So I began thinking differently of how am I, as a Catholic, using this tool in my everyday life with my friends. So you have to challenge yourself differently today, to think differently. So, but anyhow, we only got a couple more minutes here. I will stay around, so if anybody wants to chat before you go over to lunch, I will be here, and I'm here for the rest of the day. But keep your ear to the ground. Listen to the stories that are happening. Converse with each other. That's extremely important. Archdiocese of Rockville did some very interesting things. They had a challenge with their young people on what is reconciliation, and so they did some very interesting things here. I wish I could show those to you, but if you go back to the video, the links are right there. You can look at that. I simply challenge, it's a time to be creative. It's a time just simply to try things. There aren't tried and true things out there, so step out, be daring, and then take your faith. Just realistically accept your faith, and how is it that I use a tool to share my faith or to engage people in their own faith if they're learners. That's very important today. So, and if you feel you need more skills or you know others who need more skills, DDBC Boot Camp is a wonderful way. It's a 4-month period, and the folks that are on my team, people who need hand-holding, we hold, and it makes no difference where we're at. We work with people across the country. I don't move around. You don't need to pay my airfare. So it's there. So if you want to engage in that, it's a great thing. You can go to the website and find out more about it. And we'll begin another class starting in February. Then the next class is next summer. So I'll be around for questions if you need, so that's there. But maybe let's just together close with Christ has no online presence. So together, Christ has no online presence but yours. No blog, no Facebook page, but yours. Yours are the tweets through which love touches the world. Yours are the posts through which the gospel is shared. Yours are the updates through which hope is revealed. Christ has no online presence but yours. No blog, no Facebook page, but yours. Thank you. And again, that's all online. And so the handout I gave you has the link that's there. It'll lead you there to any of the presentations I've done. Use it and share whatever. Thank you. I'll be around for questions. And I guess it's off to lunch.